that's why it's really important to have a plan and understand what your goals are.
In fact, my camel out there is suffering right now with a broken back.
So I actually found Pepe when it was only a couple of hours old, and I'm like, oh, this is a funny meme.
Oh my god.
Yo! Who is this Degen?
The old man is swing trading over years at a time. And it's like, that's where the real money is made.
The answer is a permanent loss. With single-sided staking, you don't have to worry about impermanent loss.
If you're aware, if you're disciplined, you can hone that into further financial growth.
Financial freedom, to where you can actually live life and not have to be constantly living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, that's the ultimate goal, more or less, right?
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, crypto degenerates, ducks and squirrels, welcome to this here episode 54 of the Degen Roundtable. My name is Will Stevenson. I'm going to be your host tonight. We're going to be talking about FOMC highlights, some recap about what's going on over the week, some price action in Bitcoin, and much, much more. Joining me tonight is my fantastic panel over here and my lovely co-host down here. We've got Zenith, we've got Brendan, we've got Agent Jay. Gentlemen, for the folks at home who might not know who you are, let's do a quick round of introduction. So again, my name is Will Stevenson. I'm one of the hosts over here at the Degen Roundtable. I roll around the states building TV towers and stuff. And in my off time, I stream with these fine gentlemen and degenerates, and sometimes go and hang out with people. So you guys can catch me all over the place at bit.ly/hex_meetup. As I travel around the states, I post my updates down there. For my fellow co-host, Mr. Zenith, Broski, can you give yourself a quick introduction and let the folks at home know what is new and exciting with you, friend?
What's going on? It's Zenith. You can catch me on Twitter and Instagram at ZenithDI, but other than that, I'm a bit of a jack of all trades around here and government/legal expert. I actually have a speaking gig, my first one coming up October, so this should be fun. But outside of that, yeah, I am back from vacation. So I was in Colorado, I was in Ohio, and then for a second when we were at the casino, I was also in the green. But you know how that one goes. So other than that, yeah, it's very, very good to be back. Stoked to be here. I caught Boogie Stream earlier, and 54 Cent was up in that chat, and he goes, holy crap, he's back from the dead. I was like, yeah, we're back. But that's what I got going on. I'm out for 1 week, and I missed like the biggest news of the year, potentially. Like, this is actually like the moment where the tides have shifted. So I'm glad to be on tonight to talk with all you guys and talk about the our favorite macroeconomics. Shout out to Nate. Brendan, how's it going, my man?
Hey, brothers. It's going well. You know, football Sunday. My team got crushed on Thursday, so it doesn't really matter. But always paying attention to the games. Always a good time, friends and family. And you know, macroeconomics, man, we did miss you. Some really good streams. A great stream with Kareem, touching on some of the macroeconomics things that were happening. We mentioned last Wednesday that the Bank of Japan had their meeting this Friday, which was 2 days ago, and we will get into that. That was a potentially big event that we will we'll touch on. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, so to speak, especially not in Springfield, Missouri, because I don't want anyone to eat them. I said Missouri, it's not even Springfield, Missouri, but
There's Springfields all over the fucking place.
No, just kidding.
They're all getting all their cats eaten. But anyways.
No, I'm just kidding. I digress. But no, it's really good. We got a ton of good stuff to go on the show. And like you said, Zenith, it really feels like the winds are shifting a little bit, not just in the overall crypto space, but also within the Richard Hart ecosystem, which I know a lot of our listeners are very hopeful for. And it's funny how fast sentiment can change with just a couple green candles. Like, you go from 99% down to 98% down. They're like, we're going to win. But it is.
We're
I mean,
so
green
back.
candles make a big difference. Jay, buddy, been a while, man. Good to see you. How's life?
Hey, what's going on, fellas? It's very good to be back. Yes, like you mentioned, I've been out of the loop for a little bit, although I was on the Wednesday Telegram call that me and Dace hosted this past week, because as Brendan alluded to, the FOMC finally decided that they were going to transition to QE. So they cut 50 bips and the market pretty much celebrated. But for those of you who have been wondering, I've been out. To make a long story short, I want to share this story in particular because it's probably going to resonate with probably almost everybody here on the team and also our community. You know how much we harp on like security, right? And not your keys, not your coins. So a few weeks ago, I was picking up merchandise for my business. Like an idiot, I left my phone, which I basically run my entire life on my phone. My business I run on my phone. I left it on the tailgate of my truck, and I drove off. And yeah, good news is I found it, but the bad news is it was a complete, and it was in pieces actually. So I still have it as a reminder. This is what's left of my old iPhone.
Oh, damn.
Hell yeah.
All right. And so, like I said, security, right, which is what I spoke about a bit earlier. Everything that I like, my entire, like all my like crypto, my business ran on that phone. And basically all of my authenticators were on that one phone, right? And
Single point failure.
Single point of failure. Like we said, right? We don't keep anything linked to our like online identities. So that authenticator app was not linked to any email. It wasn't linked to any other account. And so what happened was I basically stonewalled myself out of every single freaking account that I had. Luckily, because we keep everything in analog, I was able to recover all of the wallets because, right, seed phrases are on paper. However, the really stressful part of the last few weeks was that I was at the risk of basically losing one of my storefronts that I have been developing for the past 2 years, right? And in particular, this was the Facebook Marketplace storefront. And if any of you know anything about Facebook Marketplace or any like online storefront in general, right? Especially when it comes to social media, it takes a lot of time in order for you to build a reputation on that particular platform, right? And if you're a new seller, for example, like I could have just made a new account, but the unfortunate reality is, right, what you lose is you lose the maturity, you lose the reputation, and obviously you lose the posting privileges, right? Unless you like establish, you go through some kind of probation period to make sure that the platform verifies that you're not a scammer, right? Your interactions with the customer base are like fairly limited. And so that's basically what I spent the entire week doing, was like going through hell and high water trying to recover those accounts. But long story short, I was able to recover every single one. I didn't lose anything. I didn't lose anything. I recovered all the wallets. I recovered all the storefronts. The business is doing fine. And now even though I am extremely hesitant, I have made a backup of of the two-factor authentications. I have established a lot more ways to recover those accounts in case I get stonewall again. But everything stays like in one location, right? So like I don't bring it anywhere. I don't connect it to anything. Everything basically stays at home in a safe. And so if I needed to recover an account, they will be safe and sound, right? But yeah, single point of failure, like Will said, bros, right? It was like I was tight on security, but I basically secured myself out of my very own accounts potentially. Yes. But that's basically what happened. So now I'm back. Hopefully nothing like that ever happens again. It's what do I always say? The most valuable lessons in life are almost always leave a scar, and that one definitely left a scar, because to say that I was stressed is an understatement. That was probably the most stressed I have ever been in my entire life, or at least in recent memory. But
heart in your throat type of stress, bro.
Yeah, man. Like put some hair in your fucking chest type of stress, bro.
And you didn't break into a bottle of whiskey.
No, sir. I'm so sober. I would have almost lost the wallets, almost lost the business, and I did not break a bottle of whiskey. Nope. I got my diet soda.
Purple drink.
Oh, that's too. Man, good for you, Jay, for figuring it out, though, man. Like there's a gentleman that we covered in book club a little bit ago, Tiago Forte, Building a Second Brain. That might some of the things that he talks about might help you out as far as like creating redundancies and creating like second spaces to store things and stuff. That whole fucking book was fucking fantastic. But good for you, man. I've been there right fucking with you, leaving a phone on the tailgate of a truck. My phone got picked up by a homeless man who called my brother with it, who then
Nice.
called me. It was super fucking super fortunate, but dude, fucking that's crazy, bro. God damn.
Yeah, man. And even though I had the OtterBox Defender, unfortunately, the OtterBox can't defend against
Yep.
like a
3,000 pounds of vehicles.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. I can't
Fucking
believe I
A, man.
found it, bro. I like it was in pieces, and I can't believe I found it.
Yeah. Oh my god, dude, that's fucking nuts. Well, we're going to enough about your crazy phone, Jay. It's time for us to talk to the audience about all of their problems. And so I don't know where my little chat shoutouts paper was. So we're gonna do this. It's time for fucking chat shoutouts, baby. We've got the chat shoutouts background, and you also get to see like parts and pieces of my Connex in here. But yeah, it's time for chat shoutouts, ladies and germs. So let's get right on into it. Mrs. Producer, if you would be so kind as to go ahead and pull up the first of the chat shoutouts. We've got our very own Mr. Kenturian 54X. Ahoy, Degens. Ahoy to you too, good sir. I've been playing fucking Sea of Thieves all day, Centurion. So if you're going to be not busy after this stream, that's probably what I'm going to go right back to doing. So shout out to you. I've had a lot of fun playing with Dace as well as Centurion over the past few weeks. Oh man, it's such a fucking fun game. Super great.
Sea of Thieves is so yesterday. Space Marine 2 is now. Join me, battle brother.
Perhaps. I heard a lot of good things about it. One of my buddies last night was trying to get me to play it, but I know how to do this thing, and so I'm going to stick with the thing that I know and the thing that I'm good at.
Fair
But
enough.
yeah, next up, we've got our very own Moon-Pilled Rational Optics. Shout out to this dude. I went over and visited him the other day. Super cool cat. I highly suggest all you guys visit him if ever you are close enough and good enough friends to find out where he is and what he does. Super cool cat. So shout out to Moon-Pilled Rational Optics. What's up, my fellow Degens? And he's got the little clinky beer thing. Clinks to you too, sir. Welcome. Good to see you in the chats. And speaking of chats, next up we've got the Bull. Man, it's been a while since I've seen this this gentleman. Welcome, Bull. Hey, legends. Good to see you, broski. Welcome back. Next up, we got Tam. What up, fam? What is up to you, Tam? Good to see you. Good to see you as well. We've also got Chad Donnerschwanz. Hello, brother Zenith. And then he waves in the Amish. I don't know how the Amish wave, but
Yeah.
I presume it's like the Queen of England or something. Or of course you know. Of course you know. They stole you over there. I think that the Amish aren't allowed to grow beards until they get married. So congratulations, Zenith, on your new Amish wife. I think you got to go get a straw hat and some suspenders. Oh, and Chad Donnerschwanz finishes up by saying also hello to my fellow based crypto bros. So hello to you too, Mr. Chad. Good to see you, bro.
From boyhood to manhood. Welcome.
Yes. Frank White's next up. Bang, Pulse Gang. Bang to you too, good sir. Mr. Frank White. Good to see you, amigo. And happy Sunday to you as well. Next up, we've got the ascending man of the Degen Roundtable. Z, I'm okay with macro sometimes. I agree.
The inside joke here is that Nate has been begging me to stop talking about macroeconomics on the stream and start talking about like more niche stuff like Pulse Chain and Phantom and whatnot. So I had to put it down for a while, but not this week. We're back.
Yep.
It's hard when there's the macro market is the biggest factor in the current in the current crypto sphere. Like if that's the biggest thing that's affecting our markets, then yeah, we need to talk about it. And you know that's what's one of the good things of the Degen Roundtable. We have people that are experts. Yeah, let's put that in parentheses or quotations if you want. On a lot of different things. You know, TA, macro, FA, LP farming. You know, just a little bit of everything. And I think that's some of the value that we're able to bring uniquely because we have so many people with different skill sets.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think a lot of people talk about macroeconomics either. I mean, you know, not a whole lot of people in the crypto sphere. There's plenty of people talking about like projects and shit going on with other chains. I got a new wheelie chair. I got to scroll this thing out of the fucking way over here. Excuse me a moment. But yeah, there's a ton of people in the crypto sphere that talk about like crypto things. Like shout out to Crypto Sloth. He was talking to some gentleman earlier today about a cool new project that was built on top of Hex. I can't remember the fucking name of it, but it's super fucking. It's very nifty. It allows you to do some cool things with HSIs and whatnot. It's very similar in that respect. But anyways, we're gonna get right back into chat shoutouts. We still got Moonpilled Rational Optics over here next up. Oh, just kidding. There's one that we're going to next. Crypto Stylist saying, "Good morning, Degens. Good morning to you too, Crypto Stylist. I believe it's morning over in Asia or over in London. I can't remember where she's at, but good morning to you too, Crypto Stylist. Good to see you." Next, we got Moonpilled Rational Optics. Z is going so heavy into crypto, he sold his Mustang and went full horse and buggy. That's true. It's a lot cheaper.
And he's churning butter for some extra money.
Yep.
We do what
There
we can for
go.
dry powder, boys.
All right. And then finally, we've got Mr. Paul Sachs. Y'all looking thick, boys. I agree. I'm fat after this vacation I've been taking, dude. I gotta fucking work all this weight off. I've been slacking off for the last 2 weeks, going to weddings and driving everywhere, eating fast food. Oh man, I feel terrible. Time to get back to the grind. Yeah, we looking thick. We're fucking swole, baby. Jay's over there wearing his Hawaiian shirt. Brendan's fucking probably yoked underneath that shirt, and then Uncle Z or Uncle Amish Z over there. Fuck yeah. We're looking good, baby. We're looking good. Speaking of looking good, let's launch right into the first part of the show today. We're going to be Zenith and or Brendan, did you want to play the video of the FOMC highlights, or are we just going to talk about it kind of? What was the game plan here?
I got a few clips picked out for us. So themes for the clip is pretty much just what changed since the last meeting, and then a good bit of talk about unemployment and how that's factored into this whole thing. So I got 3, maybe 4 clips depending on how we're doing. So I will play those and we'll get some input from the boys. First clip, 8:38. All right, let me know if you can hear it.
So since the last meeting, the last meeting, we have had a lot of data.
Sorry, I got to turn it off crackhead speed.
I believe you have it on 8x speed. You psycho.
my friend told me that YouTube only lets you go to 2x speed, which I know, but he said if you go download a plugin, you can get turbo and go to 3x. Yeah. So, all right, here we go.
So since the last meeting, we have had a lot of data come in. We've had the 2 employment reports, July and August. We've also had 2 inflation reports, including one that came in during blackout. We had the QCEW report, which suggests that suggests that the payroll report numbers that we're getting may be artificially high and will be revised down. You know that. We've also seen anecdotal data like the Beige Book. So we took all of those and we went into blackout and we thought about what to do, and we concluded that this was the right thing for the economy, for the people that we serve, and that's how we made our decision. So that's one question. What was the second and third?
How do we make sorry, thank you, sir. How do we figure out in the months ahead, is there another 25 or 50 coming in based on what shall we make that call? Thank you.
Sure. So a couple things. A good place to start is the SEP, but let me start with what I said, which was that we're going to be making decisions meeting by meeting based on the incoming data, the evolving outlook, the balance of risks. If you look at the SEP, you'll see that it's a process of recalibrating our policy stance away from where we had it a year ago when inflation was high and unemployment low, to a place that's more appropriate given where we are now and where we expect to be. And that process will take place over time. There's nothing in the SEP that suggests the committee is in a rush to get this done. This process evolves over time. Of course, that's a projection. That's a baseline projection. We know, as I mentioned in my remarks, that the actual things that we do will depend on the way the economy evolves. We can go quicker if that's appropriate. We can go slower if that's appropriate. We can pause if that's appropriate. But that's what we were contemplating. I would point you to the SEP as just an assessment of where of what the committee is thinking today. But the individual members, rather, of the committee are thinking today, assuming that their particular forecasts are realized.
All right, there you go. Clip number 1. And real quick, just as a reminder, we had this meeting happen on Wednesday, And then what they did is they actually did the half-point drop. This is the big debate for a long time, which is were they going to do a quarter-point drop or a half-point drop? If you go look at the FedWatch tool, it fluctuated a good bit all the way up until we actually had that meeting. But in the end, they went with the half-point drop, which is more of a drastic reduction per se. But at the same time, we are now back below 5% interest rate from the Federal Reserve. And the reason that he gave for it is, as said, look, we had a lot more data come in. The data hit some of the certain thresholds we were looking for, and the data is at a point where we think that it's ready for the reversal in policy. The other half of that, though, was him talking about what's going to be happening the rest of the year and into 2025. One of the things that he also mentioned at the press conference is that they already kind of have penciled in, or at least a lot of the people they survey as part of their team for this these ideas, is that there's an anticipation of 2 more quarter-point drops before 2024 is over. So that's where we're at right now. Gentlemen, what do you think? Is that a good justification for making the move now?
Yeah, we'll just say, as you mentioned, there was one dissenter, at least one person that dissented on the 50-point cut, which hasn't happened in a very long time. I actually forget how long it's been, but it's very rare that someone dissents on what the overall Fed decision is, either hold, pivot, or cut. And so that just says that there were a lot of differences of opinions here. And this wasn't as straightforward as we may have anticipated. As I've said before, I was heavily expecting a 25 basis point cut. I do believe that we got 50 for some reasons that I'll get into later. But I just want to point out that dissenting opinion or dissenting opinions is really important to know. It means that this wasn't really 100% as it normally is.
Yeah, so a couple of things to note there. Like Z mentioned earlier, one of the primary reasons why Jerome Powell and the rest of the committee decided that they were going to do the 50 bips cut was because they had the 2 months worth of data come in, right, during the blackout period earlier, a few months earlier. Now, I actually think that's a pretty good justification, right? One of the things that he mentioned for those of you in the Telegram, this will be a little bit of a review for you because we went through the entire meeting live in the Telegram channel when Jerome Powell spoke on Wednesday. But one of the reasons that he gave was like, look, the reason that we have the luxury of cutting 50 points, right? And this was crucial that he elucidated the reasons why clearly and concisely, because otherwise the market would hyper speculate and panic, right? If he didn't come in from a strong position of like, look, the reason why we're doing this is not because we are scared that we have a recession coming in, which would have had provided basically severe headwinds to the markets. But what he said was, look, we're cutting 50. The reason why we're cutting 50 is because unlike other nations, right? Most of you guys know, we spoke about this a little bit earlier in the green room, that before our central bank cut rates, a whole bunch of other nations were already cutting rates first, right? And so he said that the reason why we have the luxury of being aggressive with the first cut is precisely because we held the rates longer. And because we held the rates longer, and like Z said, we gave ourselves a little bit more time to accumulate that data, right? Because the Fed and basically the U.S. government works on lagging data, right? They're looking back on lagging data. But because we gave ourselves a little bit more time and a little bit more cushion, what we now can be confident in is that inflation is surely squarely headed towards our 2% goal, right? Not only that, we can be confident that because we got consecutive reports that inflation was heading down to 2% and staying around 2%, then we can be confident that it's going to stay there. So we can now shift our focus from, right? Jerome Powell always talks about their dual mandate, which is low inflation and stable employment, right? And so he said that in 2023, our primary focus was inflation because that was the number that was running hot, right? But now that we are confident that that number is going low and staying low, now we can focus our attention to the second part of our dual mandate, which is what? Which is the stable jobs, right? And so that's one of the reasons that he gave. And I'm like, well, that's a pretty damn good reason, right? Because now that you're able to shift your focus away from inflation into the unemployment, then you can now be more aggressive with the initial cut, right? Because you gave yourself a lot of cushion, a lot of wiggle room, a lot of breathing room. So that's my initial thoughts on this opening statement right here.
Jay, I like it. You also queued up the next clip, which is the Y half point, because that's queued up as well. But I didn't have it in any of the highlights that I pulled. But Jerome actually talked about that exact question that you just brought up there, which is the dual mandate that they like to call it, which is what is the more pressing question? And then this is the meeting where he actually says, I think it's towards the end, like in the last 15 minutes, he says that over the last 2 years, the question has primarily been, how do we get inflation under control? And then he says, now we're at the point where we have to balance two questions that are now back in the same proportion, which is how do we keep inflation low and how do we ensure that GDP growth is sustainable and not falling too much? So in this one, he actually mentions that. He says, now we have to actually start going to the balance. No longer inflation hedging. Now it's full economic oversight pretty much. But here you go. Here's the why 0.5%.
My first question is, very simply, what message are you trying to send American consumers, the American people, with this unusually large rate cut?
I would just say that, the U.S. economy is in a good place, and our decision today is designed to keep it there. More specifically, the economy is growing at a solid pace. Inflation is coming down closer to our 2% objective over time, and the labor market is still in solid shape. So our intention is really to maintain the strength that we currently see in the U.S. economy. And we'll do that by returning rates from their high level, which has really been, the purpose of which has been to get inflation under control. We're going to move those down over time to a more normal level over time.
There you go.
He reiterated the point that we've been kind of hammering home here, Z, right, over the past few months. The reason why the Fed went, like, basically transitioned to this really fast quantitative tightening cycle was to get inflation under control, not because we were scared of like a recession or of a recession, right? Which is what people usually associate the transition from QT to QE. And so that's him basically like saying, like, not really the quiet part out loud, but I think the part that people tend to either not understand, they ignore, or they just don't know about, right? They always assume that a transition from QT to QE is because it's a recessionary scare. But the reason why we're transitioning from QT to QE isn't because we're scared of a recession, at least according to Jerome Powell, right? He keeps saying over and over, the labor market is strong, inflation is heading down, economy is growing, GDP is growing at a good rate. We're not cutting rates because we're in a recessionary environment. We might have been, right? But besides the point, we're cutting rates because we were at a period of such like strict QT because inflation was running rampant, not because of recessionary scares.
That's true. Someone did ask him the recession question in this press conference, and he kind of just pretty blankly looked at him and said, "No, I think we're good. I think we're going to be okay," and that's good news. But I will say, I do want to try to be fair, which is that we've been talking a lot about the unemployment rate from the past, which is that there was the jobs revision for the year, which was revised down by about 1 million jobs. He also mentioned that in the first clip. We've had a steady increase in the unemployment until we broke past that magical 4.2% number to the point where they actually are starting to worry about it. The issue there is that it was the rate at which it was increasing, not just the actual rate itself. So I got another clip here lined up for us asking about unemployment. And then I'm going to dovetail this one. Oh, sorry, go for it.
I was just going to say one thing to keep in mind, and I said this in our chat a few times on our Telegram channel. If you're not in it, join it. That because there's so much information at our fingertips constantly, that cutting or not cutting or raising rates is already expected and it's priced into the market more often than not than it had been previously. Previously, the only time we know if they're going to cut rates or we know the numbers is if the Fed chair sits up there and speaks to everybody in front. But now, look, we have the markets on our phone. We have everything that's happening. We have Twitter. We have everything in real time. And therefore, because of that, the markets are able to sort of adapt fluidly leading up to the FOMC meeting, as long as we have some expectation and that expectation is met. And B, in this case, Jay said it, Powell had to have a damn good speech to ease the market's fears that we're moving towards recessions. And he had a great demeanor. He had a great way that he talked in this. And now, look, I don't agree with everything that he said, and we'll get into some of that. But he had a great speech, and the markets were expecting a cut. They were expecting either 25 or 50, and so the markets had already priced this in a little bit. And I think that's why we didn't get such a turn down as we have previously. And after this topic, something else. Another reason why I don't think that we've had a turn down like we anticipated, or some people anticipated. So sorry, Z, continue.
All good, all good. All right, here we go. Unemployment.
Hi, Chair Powell. Gina Smilek of the New York Times. Thanks for taking our questions. You and your colleagues in your economic projections today see the unemployment rate climbing to 4.4% and staying there. Obviously, historically, when the unemployment rate climbs that much over a relatively short period of time, it doesn't typically just stop. It continues increasing. And so I wonder if you can walk us through why you see the labor market stabilizing, sort of what's the mechanism there, and what do you see as the risks?
So, again, the labor market is actually in solid condition. And our intention with our policy move today is to keep it there. You can say that about the whole economy. The U.S. economy is in good shape. It's growing at a solid pace. Inflation is coming down. The labor market is in a strong pace. We want to keep it there. That's what we're doing.
All right, and then I'm going to dovetail that one into one more, 2347. Ba-ba-ba.
Hi, Chair Powell. Rachel Siegel from the Washington Post. Thanks for taking our questions. You're describing this view that you don't think you're behind when it comes to the job market. Can you walk us through the specific data points that you found to be most helpful in the discussions at this meeting? You've mentioned a couple, but would you be able to walk us through what that dashboard told you as far as what you know about the job market now?
Sure. So we'll start with unemployment, which is the single most important one probably. You're at 4.2%. That's, I know that's higher than we were used to seeing numbers in the mid and even below mid threes last year. But if you look back over the sweep of the years, that's a very healthy unemployment rate. And anything in the low fours is a good labor market. So that's one thing. Participation is at high levels. It's, we're right adjusted for demographics, for aging. Participation's at pretty high levels. That's a good thing. Wages are still a bit above what would be their wage increases, rather, are still just a bit above where they would be over the very longer term to be consistent with 2% inflation, but they're very much coming down to what that sustainable level is. So we feel good about that. Vacancies over, per unemployed is back to what is still a very strong level. It's not as high as it was. That number reached 2 to 1, 2 vacancies for every unemployed person as measured. It's now below around 1, but that's still a very good number, I would say. Quits have come back down to normal levels. I mean, I could go on and on. There are many employment indicators. What do they say? They say this is still a solid labor market. The question isn't the level. The question is that there has been change particularly over the last few months. And, so what we say is as the risks, the upside risks to inflation have really come down, the downside risks to employment have increased. And because we have been patient and held our fire on cutting while inflation has come down, I think we're now in a very good position to manage the risks to both of our goals.
There you go. I'll be honest, I was not very satisfied with his answer in the first clip, but the second clip there, he actually definitely expands on the idea and gives you the very specific data points. But the big takeaway for this one for me is that Jerome Powell is saying that mid 4% unemployment is the standard, and that we just had it very good for probably the last 2 years when we had that like almost record low unemployment was down as like 3.3, 3.5 for a while. And then it was only until like the last 3 months where we actually bounced above 4% unemployment. So what Jerome Powell saying is that like all the indicators look like they're pretty good. And then the final interesting point for me was he mentioned the unemployment to open positions ratio. And he said previously it was about 2 to 1, which is that there were 2 unfilled positions for every unemployed person. And now it's closer to a 1 to 1 ratio. So these are the things that are telling him that this is a healthy market. What do you guys think about this? Is it accurate? Is he a little off or what?
Look, I think one of the things that we look for when we want to cut rates is job market softening. And he's been saying that he's going to start cutting rates when job market softens and we get closer to 2%. But he said clearly that job market hasn't softened. We still have a very strong job market. We don't have low unemployment. And so he's actually contradicted himself in what he has said previously. And so that's why I'm surprised that he went with a 50. One of the reasons why I'm surprised that he went with a 50 basis points cut, because he says we're waiting for the job market to soften, but it hasn't softened. It's still very strong. And then he says we're waiting for core inflation to go down, but core inflation looks sticky. So this is the time that he talked about PC, regular inflation. He didn't mention core inflation in cutting 50 basis points. Every other meeting, he's focused mostly on core inflation. And so I do think if you know what you're listening for, he did change his wording, and they didn't necessarily stick to their guns. And so that's why I thought 25 basis points would have been a little bit better. And mainly, Zenith, your question is because of the job market. It's still strong. We don't have high unemployment. And in fact, like he said, unemployment probably only went up because we have so many people coming over the southern border. More people looking for work, however they calculate that. I don't even know. None of us do. But the number that they give us is the number that they give us. So that's what we have to work off of. But nonetheless, unemployment's still pretty low, comparatively speaking, for making a 50 basis point cut. So I think that was the one thing that really kind of surprised me in the way that he spoke, because of the way he had spoken previously, and this kind of contradicted that a little bit.
Are we still on Gina's unemployment question, Z?
Yeah, so I just played the two clips. We have the first one. They straight up asked Jerome Powell. They're like, "Hey, so what reason do you believe that the unemployment's fine?" He's like, the economy's good. And then they press him again later on, and he gets, okay, here we go. So unemployment historically at low fours is very good. At mid fours to high fours is very healthy as well. We've just had it so good for so long that now we're coming back to what is the normal levels, and it just feels bad because we've been so good for so long that it's a delta. It's a negative. It's worse than it was, but at the same time, like realistically, it's not bad.
Yeah. So that was actually one of the better questions from the meeting, and I think Jerome Powell actually hit that home run pretty well, right? We always tell folks you have to look at things within context. So the question that she posed, right, was that are you or should you be concerned that unemployment is going up this high, this fast, and that cutting rates too quickly would not exacerbate that spirit? Or what gives you so confident that you're going to be able to maintain the unemployment number that you spoke of that would be theoretically pretty healthy, right? That 4.4%. Why are you so confident that it's going to stay there? And then he obviously spoke about that. Look, right, he gave some context. People take a look at the rising unemployment rate and they panic, right? Because it's true. It did go up fairly fast within the time period of about a year, right? And so they see the number going up and they're panicking, right? The same way that people panic when they see red candles moving, like price moving down, sliding real fast. But why do we not panic when that happens to Bitcoin? Because in 2022, we were at $15,000 Bitcoin. We're right now back at $63,000. We touched $64,000 for like an hour or so on Friday, I believe, right? So the context is important. Right? Yes, the unemployment number is going up. However, like he said, he compared it to 2019. Look at the unemployment numbers that we had in 2019 because it's very reflective of the unemployment numbers that we see now. And like Z said, right? And like Jerome Powell said there, historically speaking, unemployment in the low to mid fours is actually reflective of a fairly healthy job market. And so people look at the numbers going up really fast and they panic the same way that they look at the price of Bitcoin going down really fast and they panic. But context is important. And so when you take the number that we've had now, even though the number went up fast, it's still within the context of a healthy job market, right? And so, like I said, good question. And I think he hit that right out of the ballpark, to be quite honest with you.
The second clip there, I thought he had a fantastic answer because he actually broke down all the data that they look at and made it very black and white. He was like, these are the 5 things that I look at. And I was like, I can get behind that. That's very easily to show to a new person or a person who doesn't even entirely understand all the intricacies of the questions and be like, okay, I now am able to myself go look up all the information he uses, and I can also make assessments for myself. That is fantastic.
Yep.
So I thought it was a great answer, but let me ask you guys. If previously he said he needs to see the labor market, the job market softening more to be able to really start bringing down interest rates, why is a healthy market and a healthy unemployment rate a reason to drop 50 basis points?
Okay, so again,
it seems antithetical to what he said previously. That's all.
So I think really the reason, Brendan, is because, like I alluded to earlier, even though the Fed and Jerome Powell always focuses on the dual mandate, we know that the primary concern was inflation, right? And even though, to your point, like why drop 50 if unemployment was at healthy levels? Well, I think the reason for that is because the primary focus was on inflation, right? The high inflation numbers and a still fairly healthy, or you could call it hot labor market, is counterproductive to those two goals, right? Like if those two numbers move further and further apart, right? High inflation, or like with high inflation, you get when you get a hot labor market, like the high employment and a hot labor market is going to like present an upwards pressure on inflation. And so even though the unemployment numbers that we're seeing now is theoretically healthy, like they needed to really bring it up, right? He wanted people to lose their jobs in order to bring the inflation number down. And so I again, that's like a very low resolution observation, but it's like really the only one that I can make as of this moment.
Brendan, the answer to your question from me, I think, is inflation data. And I think that one of the justifications that Jerome Powell can plausibly use for this is because he's held very, very firmly on not cutting rates all year, up until the point where the inflation data actually looks good, like consistently, instead of just like some of those dips that we got. Because remember, when we had that big drop in inflation, we came down, we bounced off 3, went back up to like 3.4, bounced down, went back up to 3.7. And then since that 3.7, like 6 months ago, it has been consistently down. And now the latest year-over-year results are about 2.5%. So yeah, I think that's one of the justifications that they can have, because especially the latest inflation numbers came back a lot. They came back lower than anticipated. So because of that,
like way lower than anticipated. Yeah,
correct. There are some unique aspects to the data when you look at it and unpackage it further, which is like, what are the actual like true causes of inflation right now when it's broken down by item. And it's like energy has been a pretty big one consistently, but at the same time, it's housing. Like housing is another one.
Housing, food, yeah.
And then another big one, it sounds crazy, is vehicles, which is that used vehicles and new vehicles both were massively inflated for a long time. And recently, they've been consistently on a very steep downtrend for this entire year. So that's definitely played a big part into some of the calculations that we see. So I'm not saying it's perfect, but I'm saying it's a lot better than it has been.
Yeah.
And are you guys worried about sticky inflation at all? You know, core inflation, which is the number that he really says that all of that he really looks at is core inflation, because all of the other inflation is too volatile to use consistently. Core inflation was up month over month more than expected in these numbers, right? So it was up 0.3%, higher than expected. They were expecting up 0.2%. So core inflation to me still looks sticky. And so my worry is if we start cutting rates too fast, that core inflation might get stickier and stickier, or could start to reverse trend, especially if the job markets hasn't had enough softening previously. So my only worry, and look, I'm okay tentatively with a 50-point basis cut, but I do have worries in there with the 50 basis point cut too. And one of those reasons is because of the stickiness of inflation, and two, because the job market really hasn't softened as much as it had previously for us to warrant this large of a cut. So I think there are other factors into play, which we're going to get into a little bit later. But I want to lay the groundwork for that, because not everything is showing positive, in my opinion, truly positive signs to warrant a 50 basis point cut.
Well, being like you said, right? If Jerome Powell made the wrong choice, as you mentioned, core inflation is still pretty sticky. if Jerome Powell made the wrong choice, and he's going to have to suffer the consequence of that, the consequences of those actions, right? Because unfortunately, the buck stops with him, right? So he's going to have to take responsibility for his actions during that meeting. Now, I will say that at the very minimum, what we can be confident in, that Jerome Powell and the committee in general, right? They hold pretty strong to what they say. Like Z mentioned earlier, throughout the entirety of 2023 and pretty much 2024, the expectation was we're lucky to get one, because the FOMC, right, and the committee, you could see it in the dot plot, right, of the summary economic projections, that nobody was expecting more than one cut, let alone to front run it with 50, right? But that's also a testament to what he always comes up there and say whenever he gets up to the podium. He says, we go by what the data is showing us, right? We will pivot on a dime if the data is telling us that we can move in this direction, right? And so that's, I think, the reason why you had like a month prior to the meeting, the consensus was basically 25. And then the closer and closer you got to the meeting, it basically went into a coin flip. The CME, for their part, started to favor 50, and then other markets like Polymarket favored 25, right? So it was basically a coin flip. But I think the reason why the markets became indecisive there is because, look, we know that Jerome Powell is going to pivot if he's confident in the data that's coming in. And like Z said earlier, right, all of the data that came in leading up to the meeting, right, because they had a few months worth of data to consider, showed that inflation was going down to the 2% goal, and it was going to stay there. And it stayed below 2%, not going back up to 3, shooting up to 3.7. No, we had consistent readings below the 3% mark. And so, okay, now we have a little bit of wiggle room here in order to be a little bit more aggressive with this first cut, right? And that's another thing that he mentioned during the meeting. He's like, look, we're going to be a little bit more aggressive because we have some breathing room here, right? And so he came into the meeting like really from a position of power. So he came in confident, and right, like he gave, instead of the very nebulous answers that he would usually give in past meetings, he came in there pretty like clear and concise.
Yeah. I'll hit you with two potentially black pills. So to your first question about sticky inflation, the inflation unfortunately really only moves one direction, which is up. And if it ever moves down, that's actually a bad thing, because that's when you get deflation, and that is a big, it's a signal of recession, and it's a signal that things are really starting to shrink and retract, and it's going to be hard to restart it. At the same time, though, lower inflation is good. But there's the other aspect of this, which is kind of like price memory and prices in general, which is that prices kind of only ever go up. And like I said, if they go down, unless it's specifically about like technology being more widely available, things being more mass produced, unless it's one of those situations, it's not a good thing per se, because it means whatever you have is not as valuable as you once thought it was. So are we ever going to see the return of the dollar menu at McDonald's? No. Do I lament this? Absolutely.
The one Bitcoin and menu at McDonald's?
Correct. The one Bitcoin menu. Oh, no.
Jesus.
But yeah, the second black pill here is this, which is that data. I will applaud Jerome. I think he's been doing a very good job recently, and I do believe that he looks at the data and he takes it into consideration. The issue is that the data is slow.
Very.
Remember, so we just had this meeting on, what was it? The 19th was when they officially announced it. So realistically, September is going to be a wash. We're not going to get our first full month of data until October.
Yep. Because there's no meeting in October, right? We have a meeting in November.
Correct. There's a meeting in November. However, if you're looking from the inflation thing, remember that the data is collected for the previous month, which means that you will get the October data in November after that meeting, which means that the first meeting that they're going to have to actually use data from this decision
from QE
is December.
Yeah.
That's a long lag time. These are really lagging indicators.
Yep.
And remember that like macro moves slow as well. When it moves fast, that's big issues. But if we're going to see actual changes and try to look at that tiny, tiny difference about what this meeting did in particular, it's either going to take even longer or it's unfortunately probably going to go the wrong direction. So realistically, you're not going to see the result of this until like probably 2025, to be honest, where you get consistent months of actual data.
Yeah, and the one other thing that I think puts Jerome in a tough place is that the job data that they're getting in real time is clearly not accurate. And so
it's a lot of estimates is what it is.
It's a lot of
Correct.
estimates. Yeah.
But-
and he
but
admitted
it's-
that, Brendan. Like like in the first clip, he was like, we're expecting another revision. In this case, I wrote it down. It's for the payroll numbers, right? He's like, so he's not like being, he's not hiding it. He's like, yeah, we're expecting another fucking revision here, guys.
Right. And so he needs to get ahead of that, right? So on one side, I'm playing like, hey, we should have had a 25 basis points cut. On the other side, I see reasons why he chose 50 basis point cut. And one of those is that he's dealing with numbers that are lagging, not only numbers that are lagging, but numbers that are lagging and incorrect, right? And so they're lagging, and then he's getting revisions 6 months or a year later. And he's like, damn, I was working off these numbers that, look, I knew they weren't probably 100% correct, but I didn't expect the biggest job revision in the history of our country, And so I think that that's something that he needs to take in consideration and say, look, the job market isn't as strong as we maybe had anticipated because of these downward revision trajectory of these numbers. And therefore, maybe I need to look and get ahead of that a little bit, expecting more downward revisions in the future. And that I give him credit for.
Yeah, that's an absolutely fantastic point there, Bean, because like you mentioned, right, we had the downwards revisions for the jobs report early, like a few months ago, of close to 1 million jobs, right? And so one of the and we spoke about this on the Wednesday stream. One of the questions, and I'm not exaggerating here, was asked basically like 3 or 4 times in a different way, right? Are you cutting this aggressively because you're terrified that you held rates too high for too long and now you're playing catch up? He was like, no, that's not the case. Right? We mentioned this earlier. They're coming from a position of power because they held rates higher for longer, which means they have a lot more confidence that inflation is going down and staying down. But then he also said that, look, because we are dealing with lagging data and because we are, again, he admitted that we are probably going to see another revision, this time for the payroll numbers, that because we now have the luxury and the cushion to be more aggressive with cuts, that if it is the case that we're going to get another significant downwards revision somewhere along the line, then this is us hedging against that, right? So that so that unemployment doesn't go rampant and then we're basically back to square one. Right. So that's like, it's a good argument that you could make that the 50 is a hedge against the lagging indicator that we get for the labor market.
Yeah, to double tap Jay's answer there, he gave the Gandalf answer to the reporter on this one. He said, no, this is exactly on time. This is the correct timing and the correct size. And he defended it the entire press conference. So
yeah, he had to. If he was like wishy-washy, oh boy. Ooh,
I gotta say, this is a bit of like a meta thing and me understanding like, yes, I'm becoming an old person at this point, but like this was a press conference that I actually enjoyed and I thought it was a good one. There was a good mix of questions. When he didn't give a great answer, they pressed him on it, and then he eventually went and expanded further on the ideas, and they got good ones. And there was also a good plethora of questions too. And there were even some like pretty topical things that he was not afraid to address. One of them was he actually brought up how illegal immigration is something that affects the supply side of the unemployment data. And then on top of that, they also straight up asked him like, are you guys under like any political pressure? And he's like, no, we've been doing a pretty good job at staying independent for this one. I will say that.
Yeah. The reason, like one of the key factors of a thriving economy is a central bank that's insulated from political like influence. Like obviously, like they have their own opinions, but I think you could make the good argument that JP and the committee has been pretty good at not letting their politics bleed into their policy making decisions.
It's true. I will say I'm not entirely satisfied with his answer because I think it is an answer that, if you're not completely educated on the entirety of his answer, you're not going to understand the context, which is he's like, what do you say? Insulated or non-politicized central bank is good, and it shows that it is better than politicize central banks or central banks under the authority of the government or the executive at the time. And it's like, yes, correct, because that is how you get Zimbabwe dollars, or you get Argentina, where the central bank just 10x's the currency overnight, and you just get hit with day of 90% inflation. But the other half of the answer is that in general, I think central banks kind of have a bad track record overall. So just because this one is better than the other ones, it's still not good.
We are the shiniest turd in the pile.
Straw man.
No, it's good. Like Will said, it's the shiniest turd in the pile of shit. But can you imagine if we had a partisan chair, head of the Federal Reserve, and can you imagine if we had a central bank and a chair that was as adamant at getting Trump out of office or not reelected as the legacy media has been?
Yeah,
I think it's naive to believe that it's not 100, to believe it's not somewhat or even a little bit swayed by politics. But at the same time, I would say it's more not that more than it is, which is that it's the 51% we are not swayed by political pressure. But the other question is, what percentage is it swayed by political pressure? I fortunately think that with Jerome Powell at the head, it's a small percentage. But again, you're kind of a fool to believe that it's zero, in my opinion.
Yeah. That's very naive. Yep.
Yeah. I will say there was one other answer he had. Sorry, go for it.
No, if you want to go, I was going to ask another question.
I got a non-sequitur about the press conference overall.
So
but hit it.
If politics doesn't have a consideration at all, does Japan rates being potentially a chance to those be raised, is that a consideration for him? Because that is somewhat political in a sense, but he's taking not just our economy into consideration, but he's also taking into consideration, which we talked about, other people already reducing rates for a couple months, and we hadn't touched them yet. I think that's a really fair point. But we saw a while back the Bank of Japan raised a rate for less than 0.25%, less than 25 basis points, and the markets went wild. And I think that Japan's interest rates are high. Very low. Ours are very high. Japan holds a lot of bonds, a lot of stocks. United States, the highest. I think they hold the most bonds of anybody outside of our government, and therefore interest rates for them could make a big difference. And so if they raise their interest rates, that could help us, or that could help them, but it could hurt us. And so is Jerome Powell raising 50 basis points to also appease Japan a little bit and hope that they don't drop rates? Raise rates?
If you take Jerome at his word, I think he consistently hammers home the dual mandate, which is stable job market, consistent prices. That seems largely focused on the U.S. and the U.S. economy. However, I'm sure that Jerome obviously looks at international markets and how they factor into everything going on. But I think that Jerome is the kind of guy that understands that a lot of what he can control is inside the United States, and that should be good enough because it's the number one economy in the world by a large margin. So
yeah, but if Japan holds most of our bonds, then they play a factor in us more than anyone else.
I think you're correct on that. There is a part of that, but I don't know how large of a part it's going to be, because I think back to the beginning of the month when we had the Black Monday event and people were calling for Jerome Powell to do an emergency 3/4 point to full point interest rate cut to alleviate the markets. And then the markets recovered within the week. It was kind of a crazy event. And I know that is something that's going to get memory hold very quickly. But what I chalk that up to is a near miss, which is that an event like that had potential to really go sideways and really go south very quickly. But based on the forces that were it just worked out the other direction. And maybe a knee-jerk reaction could have made it worse, could have guaranteed that we went down the downwards trajectory. But something like that, where we do have that near-miss event happen, where it looks terrible for a day or a week, but then you're pretty much good afterwards. And then since then, we also hit new all-time highs on S&P 500. It's I don't know. It's one of those things that makes you question, what is the actual size of the effect that we're talking about here? Yep. There is an effect, absolutely. But what's the size of it?
I would say, Bean, to your question, that if the Bank of Japan raising rates during Black Monday had a significant effect in the Fed's policy decision, Jerome Powell certainly did a damn good job of hiding it, right? Because the case that he presented last Wednesday made no mention of the policy decision being made.
Nor
because
should
of
it.
Japan.
Nor
Right?
should it.
Nor it should, right? Because then you come in from a fucking position of weakness, right? And then I was going to say telegraph, but then you basically tell people that, yeah, we're concerned that the Bank of Japan is going to raise rates. And so we have to transition to QE because that way the yen could stay strong, right? But like Z said, if there was a time to telegraph that the United States was overly concerned about what the BOJ was doing, it would have been the day after Black Monday. Right? When everybody was calling on him to have an emergency meeting to cut rates, and he was like, nope, that's not happening. Right? So whether it did or didn't, even if it did, we will never know because it either one, like unlikely that it didn't factor into the decision, or number two, which is more likely, that they did a damn good job of hiding it because you always have to come in from a position of power when you're the most powerful nation in the world, right? I mean, we barely have a president like now, well, at least until November, hopefully.
No, it's January, my guy, because that's when you get sworn in.
Yeah, but I'll be celebrating in November when Trump gets reelected. Knock on.
From your lips to God's ear, please.
Z, why don't you pull up what you're gonna next? Because I want to get into this a little bit more, and I think that's where you're going with this.
I do, Mrs. Producer. If you can pull it up, I have the lovely S&P 500 chart on our favorite trading view. So, for context, this right here, this was Black Monday, this green candle. It's ironic that Black Monday has a giant green candle, but it is what it is. So, yeah, there you go. That's Black Monday right there. We're here. So, again, I think that it's something to be said, which is that the world's favorite borrowing shortcut between interest rates for Forex trading caused this size of a dip, which honestly wipes out like 1 to 2 years of progress in literally 3 days and a weekend. And then since then, we've also recovered. So we've made 2 years of gains in effectively 1 or 2 months as well. So it's like, it boggles the mind, so to speak. But it's one of those things where it's like, this is downside risk. But since then, we've also recovered. So it's like, how big of a deal was this actually? We don't really know. And I'll try to put this in context about how big of an effect Jerome Powell has on the market. These 3 candles right here are the Jerome Powell candles. This green candle right here, this is the hourly chart, by the way. This green candle right here, this is the one where they actually announced the press release statement for what their decision was. These 2 candles are the press conference candles, aka when Jerome Powell starts speaking and when he finishes speaking. And you can see that that's even like a pretty big daily fluctuation. So we heard the news, we like it. Jerome Powell starts speaking, people get fearful and pessimistic. They go to sleep for the night. They wake up in the morning, and wow, we've already gapped up higher than we were on the drop the other day. It's like,
this happens, man.
This happens every time. I'm telling you, go back and look at every press conference and the timing. You will see these 3 candles right here, whether it's in the correct shape that you think it is, or it's in the inverse shape, which is that people get scared by the news, and then Papa Jerome comes back and tells them the world is fine, you're safe, stop freaking out, and they go, okay, yeah, you got it. Versus this one where people are like, oh yes, rate cuts, I like this, and they go, wait a minute, why was it 0.5%?
This is such a good indicator that people are emotional. Those 3 candles. Like,
Reference,
that doesn't convince you. I don't know
those
what
ones. Does. Those ones right there.
Yeah,
that's Jerome Powell. That's the Fed meeting. That's a 0.5 point cut right there. These ones, that is Black Monday in a weekend.
Yeah, Z. You know when you ask the question that who did it matter? Like who Black Monday mattered to? It mattered to the normies because those
people
are
out
the
on
people
their skis.
Yeah, those are the people that got liquidated.
It mattered. It mattered to the norm.
Yeah,
it mattered to the normies and the people that had $4 trillion in carry trades.
when the free money started, when free money suddenly starts becoming expensive, I mean, less than 25 points is not a lot. But when you go to more than a decade of 0 to 25 to like 20 points, you go from 0 to 20. That's a lot.
Yeah, it might as well be 0 to 1 at that point because you're going from nothing to something.
Yep.
And in anything, when it's trillions of dollars in play is a lot of money. You know, because
absolutely.
These we're talking about small margins. We're not talking like people are making multiple percentage points. It's like 0.25% on $1 trillion is a lot of money, right?
Yep.
But so that, you know, you have to take the scale into consideration here.
Yep.
True. All right. Speaking of which, Bank of Japan, we have an article. Brennan, I believe this one is yours, correct?
I didn't put it there, but I was going to. Someone beat me to it.
The great irony is I also looked up an article for this topic, and I found this exact same one as well.
That was me, fellas. But we kind of already alluded to this leading up to Brendan or Z pulling up the article, right? So on the tail of Wednesday's meeting, the Japanese central bank basically had their meeting on Friday, and this was what I think gave the market a little bit more confidence, right? Both traditional and the crypto markets, because we've had a pretty good weekend. We had consecutive daily closes in the green. We finally had 2 consecutive green weekly closes, which we have not had in a while, more than a month. And I think this was one of the catalysts that kind of propelled us to the strong weekly close for Bitcoin, right? Is that when the Japanese central bank held their meeting on Friday, they basically said, look, in not so many words, the US started QE, and so we're not in a rush anymore to continue QT. This entire article is basically them saying we're going to be in a wait and see period, right? Until probably next year, right? Early, probably like Q1 of next year, right? Because if Jerome Powell decided to either, we're still going to hold the rates higher for longer, or he went 25, then a strong argument could have been made that Japan would have continued with their quantitative tightening cycle, right? Because Brendan mentioned this earlier, when the yen is getting significantly weaker and you're facing pressure from like not just your constituents, but from the rest of your government, then this is basically what forced Japan's hand, right? And so the fact that we have not transitioned to QE, the yen can stay strong, and so that's why they're saying we're gonna be in a wait and see period until we decide if further monetary tightening is required.
Yes, Jay, thank you. Great points. And you said again, if the United States had only cut rates by 25 basis points, it may have made Japan want to raise their rates. And that would have caused the liquidation again of our stock market. I think we would have then seen an issue, which we have seen previously when we raise rates, prices go down. Because if Japan had raised the rates, that Black Monday, that Red Monday would have happened all over again. That would have happened all over again. Maybe it wouldn't have been that bad. Maybe some of the carry trade has been fixed, but not really, not much of it, if any. And so if they started to raise rates, those carry trades would have had to start becoming unwound. And there is consideration there. I mean, Jerome Powell's not a dumb person, nor is anybody in the Fed. So it would not surprise me if there was some conversation about, hey, we have to worry also about Japan raising rates. And I'm not saying it played into their decision or not, but I wouldn't be surprised also if it did. And if it did, I'm very glad that they didn't talk about it, didn't bring it up. I wish somebody asked the question, though. I really wish somebody asked the question. Although, and also the other side of me says I'm glad someone didn't, because that might have made the meeting a little bit more scary. And so, the less people know, the better in some cases, right? And so, especially when you talk about normies, so people don't think about Japan being a big issue. Maybe it doesn't become a big issue. But I think this is huge. Us dropping 50 basis points, the next thing was, hey, we have to wait and see if Bank of Japan is going to raise rates or hold. Not only did they hold, but as you mentioned, Jay, they kind of went more dovish. Okay, we're not really looking to raise rates now because the United States is starting to quantitative ease. And if they continue to do so, wink, wink, nod, nod, Jerome, we shouldn't have to raise rates. And so look, we can't act as if there aren't outside factors that affect the United States. And the Fed really would be at a disadvantage if they didn't look at world markets. even though that's not their mandate, right? Their mandate is unemployment and inflation. But we have to consider the overall markets and how that plays into that as well. And so, look, overall, happy where we're at, very happy where we're at. Man, is this bullish news. We haven't even mentioned that yet.
Yeah.
The bullishness is that has been building since the cutting of rates, since the Bank of Japan holding rates. Wow, man, we're really looking to potentially get a next step up here. Maybe not in September, maybe not in October, but leading into the fourth quarter of this year, we could look really strong. And I don't know about you guys, but green candles have been a really nice thing to see because it still feels like a bear market in like 75% of crypto.
You know what's funny, Bean? During the call on Wednesday, we were having a discussion with one of our members, Dev, proof of no work Dev, right? And the conversation was around, like you said, the reason why the Federal Reserve and the government in general tend to keep some things hidden, right? They don't necessarily lie, but they tend to omit, which you could argue it's another form of lying, right? But there's that old saying that you can't handle the truth. Most of the investing public wouldn't be able to handle the truth, right? They would panic on short notice. And so I think you're correct. I think they specifically withhold some of this information from the investing public because they know that it's going to be a shitstorm if they were that brutally honest with people, right? And so even if, like, imagine, so you mentioned, right, you wish that you would that question regarding the BOJ would have been asked or would have been discussed.
I wish and I don't wish at the same time.
Yeah. But if it, like, imagine if it did, you know what he would have said? He would have lied out of his fucking teeth. He would have been like, nope, we care about the United, we care about our country.
He'd be like, what's the Bank of Japan again?
Yeah.
I think that I still do think very firmly that Jerome Powell is going to make decisions and the Bank of Japan will make their decisions after them. It is not that the Bank of Japan makes decisions, Jerome Powell makes it based off them.
Yep.
I'm going to throw it out there, but good old Hayek, part of the Hayek school of thought is that trying to do central planning of economies is going to fail because who is ever closer to the problem is going to have a lot better understanding and a lot better knowledge on the problem and data. So to think that Jerome Powell is trying to control world markets, no, I don't think so. I think Jerome Powell is trying to control U.S. markets. Do I think the Bank of Japan is trying to control international markets? No, I think you're going to try to control Japan. Do they still look at the larger global picture and try to understand what their place inside of it is? Yeah, but at the end of the day, I do believe that these are genuinely rational actors that are making rational decisions based on their own circumstances and the thing that they're directly trying to affect. So that's where I'm at.
You know, it would be so wonderful, Z, if the rest of our fucking politicians understood that concept, right? Instead of trying to control what the rest of the world is doing, maybe take care of, our shores first, right? Maybe take care of things at home first.
I was going to say, you can apply that knowledge there, or you can also take it one step further and go from the bigger level to the smaller level, which is that as a politician, if you have never been involved in any of these economies or understand what it takes to do any of the production, then you trying to blanket just make policy at large regarding on how someone out in the field is going to do their job, it's probably going to go poorly, and you're definitely going to miss something, and you're absolutely missing context about it. So again, it's Hayek. It's the people closest to the problem have the better and more information. Politicians, they have the information they have. The people doing the work, they have their information. Just saying.
You're talking about like Hayek school of thought, and I can't help but think of fucking Selma Hayek. I'm like, what the fuck? Who is the fucking
different one?
It's Hayek, like with an A. And I'm just like,
I mean, Selma's the only other Hayek that I know.
No, Phil, it's this guy. Look at the man.
That guy.
Hayek,
yep.
We are Austrian. We want to have good data. Yeah.
Good sausages. Yeah. Schnitzel.
There you go.
You know, another glaring example, since we're on this topic, Z, of politicians engaging in things that they know absolutely nothing about. So I mentioned this earlier in our team chat that I wanted to go over sometime the following week. This week, basically. Another big thing that happened last week, which was basically encompassed by what happened with the FOMC meeting and then the BOJ news. But we had another financial services committee meeting last week which was about a 2-hour long meeting of basically them railing the SEC. It's hilarious. It's
our
hilarious.
favorite activity, dunking on Gary Gensler.
I watched that. That was great.
Bro,
I
that
had a
shit
good
was
time.
2 hours long. It was absolutely fantastic. And it became very obvious. The more you watch, right? I know it could be dry to some people, but what I've noticed over like the year, especially 2023 and 2024, as crypto has become more adopted, especially here in the West, you see a shift in tone in the politicians, right? And like even people traditionally who would have nothing to do with crypto, people are adopting their lens to fit us. And you can see it by the way that they engage, right? And in their language. The title of the committee, I think it was something along the lines of the SEC and Gary Gensler dazed and confused about crypto policy or some shit like that, bro. And to Z's point, a lot of that meeting was people in their on the right side of the aisle asking thoughtful questions of the people that represented these crypto companies that came to spoke within that hearing, right? And from the left, again, I'm gonna give some credit to some of the representatives on the left, because like there was a handful of them there that are actually very pro crypto and were very thoughtful in their line of questioning. But like people like Maxine Waters, who is a staunch, if you watch this, Will, every single time she was on the mic, she had a whole lot of nothing.
Dude,
absolutely
it was
jack shit.
This shit pissed
nothing.
me off, man. Like it was a bunch of nothing burger questions that she was basically collecting sound bites. But it reminds me of like, you know,
but the sound bites weren't even good, Will. They were
weren't.
terrible.
Dude, oh fuck. I don't know if any of you guys are super deep into the gun culture meme, but there was a fucking I can't remember the bitch's name, but she was talking about like assault weapons ban stuff in California, and she was listing off the parts of a weapon that makes for an assault weapon, and for whatever reason a barrel shroud was on there, like the thing that you hold on to stop from burning your hand while you're holding a gun. And they were like, what's a barrel shroud? She's like, it's a shoulder thing that goes up or whatever. Like, and it's just like the politicians are just, a lot of them are out there just making rules about shit that they don't know a fucking thing about. And it's really frustrating for me to watch, because I got to realize that these people make decisions that shapes and influences my life, and they're up there yammering on about shit they don't know about so they can collect sound bites to keep their it doesn't matter why they do it. The fact of the matter is that they do it. And Maxine, if you guys want to fucking hurt your ears and cringe a lot, then go watch Maxine Waters her little segments out of that fuck clip. I enjoyed it. I actually found it because Richard Hart posted it because his lawyer was there.
Yep, and I was just going to mention that.
Yeah. So that was
Michael Liftick from Quinn Emanuel. He was actually one of the experts there talking about crypto regulation and how important it is to have crypto regulation, and how can you have a committee, the SEC, trying to regulate something that they don't actually have any regulation for.
There was some big hitters there, bro. Like
big
the
hitters.
Former head of like the enforcement, like the former chair of the SEC enforcement committee was there. Like there was some big fucking hitters there. Just basically dunking on Gary, bro. Like it was entertaining.
And look, I can't think it's a bad thing that Congress asks Michael Liftick, one of the biggest proponents and most respected lawyers in the crypto sphere, to come be an expert. Oh, and again, he is one of Richard Hart's lawyers. That has to be a good sign for Richard Hart.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, I have some bad news for you. You're talking about Maxine Waters. Yeah, she's the ranking member of the House Financial Services Committee.
Yeah,
I know.
Unfortunately, we see here in a lot of the crypto clips.
Like how disheartening is that, right? Like she is one of the senior ranking members of the House Financial Services Committee, and she is on the same team as Liz Warren, right? Everybody's favorite Pocahontas, right? A very staunch anti-crypto politician, and she can't even articulate the reasons why she does not like this space, right?
It should.
Like,
go ahead, Jay. Finish.
it's a fucking crime, bro, because like the representative that was there for the SEC was going on and on about like how the SEC was doing their job correctly and how they did not misstep whatsoever aside from like maybe 1 or 2 cases. And then French Hill came in and basically dunked on this motherfucker.
Yes.
Like
Oh,
how about the one about debt box, bro? Like, did that just escape your mind? Right?
Bro.
Like, how about the enforcement actions that they've taken and they've lost against companies like Consensus, right? Uniswap, Binance, Coinbase. What else? Help me out here, guys. There's been a lot, right?
Grayscale. I think
Even
Grayscale and
XRP,
XRP are some of the biggest L's that they've taken publicly.
And now they're going after
Coinbase.
OpenSea, and I'm like, where have you been, dude? Did you come here just completely unprepared? And so French Hill railed him like, bro. Yeah, we'll go over it. It was entertaining.
And they're going to take more L's. Look, with all the cases that they're currently bringing against crypto companies for unregistered securities, they might lose all of them.
Mm-hmm.
There's a good chance that they lose all of them. And in fact, by the way, they walked back. In all of the recent cases that they've brought against somebody, they used the phrase unregistered crypto, unregistered digital securities or unregistered crypto securities.
They walked it back. Yeah.
But how can you walk something back that's in every one of your
Wells notices
against somebody? Like,
well,
okay, you're literally just saying, oh, by the way, we just made up this phrase and therefore it really doesn't have any value. Okay, so then what is any of the Wells notices that you brought previously? How does that have a case to stand on if you've walked back everything that you had an issue? So, selling them secondhand is not unregistered securities. Okay, then how is anything that you're bringing to court a security? Excuse me. Honestly. It's ridiculous. What are we doing here? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. I created the piano key necktie. I created it.
Oh boy.
Jay, you had said something earlier. You had said something earlier that no, that like watching Maxine Waters should be like disheartening or something. And I just got to thinking like, man, if this bitch can make it there, then that should be motivation for anyone to just fucking go for whatever the hell it is that they're doing. If she made it all the way up to politics and she's in the financial services committee, then you for fucking sure, not you, Jay, specifically, but whoever might be listening right now, you can fucking ask the girl out. You can go to the gym. You can start that business. You can fucking, fucking go balls to the wall, guys. Roll that 20-sided dice and give it your best go. If she can make it into politics, you can do fucking anything. This is the world that we live in.
Well, it's a bit of a political joke, but it's saying that representative democracy is the idea that that the people deserve to get what they ask for, good and hard.
Oh yes. Oh man.
Like, if you're disappointed with representatives, you voted these people in. That's a reflection of you, my guy.
On the subject of representing, have we covered this topic a little bit? I want to do a run of chat shoutouts if that's all good with you guys.
Let's do
it.
A
couple of them stacked up here.
Final word on this before we go to chat shoutouts. If you want to, if it sounds like we're talking about nonsense, which to the uninitiated it does, because we were talking about minutia of understanding how the head of the SEC is acting more as an enforcement agency instead of a regulator. Talking about how all these different like court cases have precedence and what comes up. How come like a legal term just gets expunged from the record, even though that the person using the legal term was the one that invented it, tried wielding it against other people, then lost and continues to try to wield it against people. It's like that is very hard to follow. The clearest example of this phenomenon we're talking about is if you're brave enough to either go read it yourself or you can listen to the stream that Will and I did. If you go look at the Richard Hart case, go read the 3 documents that were presented by the Richard Hart team, the SEC as a response to that, and the Richard Hart's team to the SEC response. The SEC response talks about how they have very wide, broad, swathing, just all-encompassing ideas about how, this thing like technically passes the Howey test, but if we also look at the totality of the circumstances, which like so many people made money altogether, therefore it has to be a security because like he said this one thing in a stream that we can apply to this case. And then you go read the Richard Hart team response to that, and it's like, thank you for cherry picking over 24 hours of stream to find one sentence sandwiched between many disclaimers that discredit the entire thing you're trying to prove right now. Also, no one ever brought up the Howey test. That is you just trying to ambiguously apply this thing that you think works in your favor, even though this person is specifically applying to the letter of the law and following it so. But just because you don't like that people made money, you're just going to say, nah. That is the example we're talking about here.
They actually went over that particular issue quite extensively during the hearing, right? The fact that the Howey test and the way that the SEC is trying to apply it, like it doesn't apply to the industry. It's basically akin to trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, right? And the fact that you're using such an outdated and without the willingness to modify it to at least a small degree to fit the crypto industry, right? They went over that quite a bit, right? And you know, they also dunked on the SEC for trying to fit the square peg into a round hole.
Yeah, there's also, I mean, contradictories inside of the SEC's response, which is that in one part they claim that Hex or Pulse Chain is a fraudulent security because it lost a bunch of people money, and then at the same time they're trying to claim it's a security because it made people money as well. And it's like, you got to pick one here, bud. Like I can look at the chart as well and just know that you're wrong on one of these, but like that's bold of you to try to swing it between 13 pages there.
Yeah.
Also, the dates that they used were wrong. The prices that they used and the dates that they used them were wrong. So they're not even using data that's accurate in their defense.
True. Yeah, but to Jay's point about the Howey test in particular is that the Howey test, it's actual like court case precedent that has been established into law and has been continuously applied rigorously. Only in the last 5 years has the recent SEC tried to apply it in ways that they deem fit. And then the way that they get away with it is this, which is that people know going to court is expensive. Also, if you put anything in front of a bench or a jury, God forbid, it can go any direction. It's entirely up in the air. So what does that do? That incentivizes you to settle. So how does the SEC work? At the end of the day, the government's kind of it's a giant shooting people machine. So Gary Gensler shows up to your house, points the gun in your face, which is either a jail time, a lot of money that you have to pay him, and says, cool, I think you did these. Prove me wrong in the court of law. And then you say that, like, well, he's asking for $2 million in fines, or I can spend $5 million in court fighting this. All right, fine. We'll just pay the man who's threatening me. It's like, we'll get it over with. It's like, he hasn't won on this in court. They're just continuing to wield it in ways that are just negative EV plays for fighting. And then only in this case with Richard Hart have they run into the person who literally has the FU money, and he says, nah, I'm gonna fight you. And they even call him out for it in their response as if they're unhappy about it, because they're like, can't believe this guy said he has a lot of money and wants to actually fight us. What a stupid thing to do. And it's like, no, stop.
Like
Get
that's what
some help.
you want, right? Because like
correct,
you said,
that's what you need.
The unfortunate reality is people don't really care about context. People will see these entities settling and they will interpret that as an admission of guilt. You're settling, you don't want to lose in court, and so you're just going to pay the fine and move about your business. You're going to conduct yourself appropriately and not do these terrible things that the SEC is accusing you of, right? Obviously, we all know that that's not the case, right? Like you mentioned, people would rather settle for $2 million than engage in a extended legal battle that could be double or triple that, and then at the very end can't even guarantee that you win the fucking case, right?
That's true. The
like,
great
people don't care
oxymoron
about
to
that.
the great oxymoron to settling is that when you settle, you're literally not admitting guilt or taking any guilt for it, but you're choosing to settle with the party. However, socially that's interpreted as
guilty.
Wrong.
Yeah, that you were wrong.
It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of thing.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, you ask yourself, is it more profitable to business? Or if you're Richard Hart, you ask yourself, how can I get glory out of this?
It seems like he has enough money to fight it, so.
Correct. They ran into one man who has a very different ruler by which he measures his life. So, man. All right, Will.
All right.
Hit us with the background. Let's go.
Hang on, I gotta pull up I wasn't ready. I didn't have my my background settings ready. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for fucking chat shoutouts, baby. Let's get into it. All right. I like that when I block out the light on my green screen, it turns black. Okay. Back to regular. There we go. All right. So first up, Mr. Producer. Thank you. First up, we got our very own Moonmutt. Moonmutt, what's up, dude? He's an IRL friend I've met. Super cool guy in real life. Y'all should hang out with him. Good to be here with my favorite Degens on this green candled weekend. Good for us to be here with you as well. We love to have you, Moonmutt. I can't wait to see you again. It's going to be a good time for us.
It's so frustrating because I've been watching the charts all year diligently since March, and we hit that high. We've just been down ever since. I stopped looking at the charts for 1 week, and they magically just go up like they 2x.
That's all you need to do, bro. Once what is it that Sami says? Like when you kill the final bull and capitulate him to bearish, that's when the bull market fucking starts, baby. So you taking one for the team, bro. I appreciate it. That's what brought about all these green candles, man.
There you go. Get off the charts. Go touch grass.
Yep. Go touch the grass.
You know what they say, Z? Like the market is gonna do exactly the opposite of what you want it to fucking do.
Yep.
Z's like,
I'm
gonna check out for like a week or so and go touch some grass and get the hell away from all this chart nonsense. And then he comes back and he's like, oh shit, we closed 2 weeks consecutively green. We're fucking transitioning into aggressive QE. The BOJ said we're not going to raise. The House Financial Services Committee basically dunked on Gary for this week. I just missed a whole bunch of cool shit while I was out camping or whatever.
I missed it all. But I will say the one saving grace is I did make a DCA into Pulse Chain before I left. So I think I bought the lows, which is kind of cool.
Very nice.
Feels good.
Excellent work. Speaking of feeling good, we've got another member to shout out over here. We've got Hex Glenn saying, hey guys, what's up, Hex Glenn? Good to see you, amigo. Welcome to the channel. Right after that, pouring in, we got Tin Top, the tinniest of tops. I believe that's a Mandalorian helmet he's got over there. What's up, Hexkins? What's up to you too, sir? Excellent. Good. Or actually, we want to do this one, not this one. Those are two different meanings there for those of you that don't know. Live long and prosper. Yes, you're right, Jay. Next up, we got Jacob Trevelyan or Jacob Travaillon, if you're maybe French or something. I don't know. What's up, broski? Thanks for all the info and guidance that you give us. What's up to you, good sir, as well? You're not going to catch any guidance from me. I just sit here and do the chat shoutouts and host the show. These guys are the ones that are giving you the good guidance. I'm just here to hang out and have fun and have a good time.
Not guidance. Definitely info. Maybe not guidance. Definitely not financial advice.
Yes, not financial advice.
Absolutely not financial advice.
Nothing that we say is financial advice. We're a bunch of people just talking about our feelings on the internet, and you guys have the
we're actually all broke.
Yeah, you probably really shouldn't listen to us. If the indicators of my past or anything to be said about my ability to make good decisions, then well, I will leave it at that. Speaking of leaving it at that, we've got Kay Hudson coming up next. Richard Hart's going to make a statement in charts in October. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. I know that every time I've tried to guess what Richard Hart's going to do, I've been wrong every fucking time, but we'll see. I would not be surprised to see October price action happen. I will say that I like when he posts when the green candles are up. It makes me feel good, and I'm sure it makes everyone else with the tokens that are going up feel good as well. So excellent. And then we've got our very own Nate, the Ascending Man of the Degen Roundtable, saying, when you kill the final bear, the bull market is over. So yes, once the last person who's finally like, okay, guys, all right, I capitulate, we're bullish, then that's when the bear market starts. So it's just one of those things. It's a kind of funny little joke on the market, just like, hey, whenever everyone finally agrees, that's when it flips over. So until, as long as there's fighting, then there's still hope to be had. So again, not financial advice. This is all just this is all speculation, us thinking outside the box and doing our feelings and things. How do we feel about doing a little bit of price action for the pulse chain stuff?
We've been dancing around it. I think it might be an interesting thing to think out loud about on. So we're talking about, we got the Richard Hart case coming up for October 24th. We just had 2 weeks of really good green candle action in September.
Wait, not the 24th. His case got moved to the 31st.
Yeah,
correct.
31st.
Oh, it got moved.
Oh, really?
Yep. Fun fact. That happened like 2 or 3 days ago.
2 days ago. Yes, it's now the 31st, not the 24th anymore.
Yes, good point of correction there, Brendan. I had forgotten about that. Yes, it is the 31st now. So for those of you guys who have already bought tickets, make sure that you get that rectified. And sucks to suck that's the way that it goes sometimes. I'm glad that I'm driving over there instead of flying. The Pulse Chain tour, I'm not sure what they're doing as far as their event, because I know they have an event planned, and it was planned for the 25th of October. So sit tight for more information on that. We will get back to you as soon as we know what RG3 and SJ are doing.
Yes. So, but I do want to say that since it's going to be on Halloween, I heard a rumor that the SEC lawyers are going to dress as clowns.
Oh,
shit. Shots fired.
They'll certainly be acting like clowns. I almost guarantee you that. Oh, fuck. Well done. Well done. All right.
Z, you want to take, which one do you want to take? You want me to take Pulse and you take Pulse X?
Yeah.
I want to see some Hex in there. Hex has been around the longest.
I also want to go for it.
I was telling Jeff, because Jeff keeps bull posting about Hex. I keep telling Jeff, wake me up when we're only down 90%. And then I get excited, bro.
Yep. I don't have any Pulse tattoos yet, so somebody do some of these Hex numbers in there. Hex is the OG. But we can do whatever. We could talk about I will say that in terms of Degen Roundtable tokens, I see the price of Pulse Chain going down. So if you're comparing it against DRT, that's what I foresee happening. That's just my silly little shitcoin speculations and things. Z and Jay, you guys both look like you got your chart faces on right now. Who's going first?
I can get the chart faces on, but first I want to do the game theory behind it, or kind of the little checkmating sequence theoretically.
Hang on. I've got just the thing. I've got my magical
campfire stories. Is it time for campfire stories? I like it.
It's time for some fucking campfire stories. Bam. Here we go. All right, everybody. Strap in, grab your marshmallows, pull up those nice little foldy chairs from Walmart. It's time for some roasty toasty campfire stories. What do we got?
There you go.
Roasty toasty.
Yeah.
So before I left, back when I was still doing research, I was tracking some wallets that had onboarded a lot of money into specifically Hex and then also Pulse Chain itself. Like, these are wallets that legitimately bought like $250,000 within 1 week time frame. We also know that we heard from our good buddy Corey Geary that there are also some larger players starting to come over to the chain as well. So it's plausible that this could just be a normal pump. It's also a theory I've heard bounce around that this is possibly due to the anticipation of October, because October could break either way. If it goes poorly, price go down, people take profits, still technically a gain. If it goes well, they're just trying to enter the market before the pump happens. What do you guys think about that?
Well,
It's a good campfire story. Yeah.
Either way you win, right? You win, and if it doesn't go as well as you think it's going to be, you entered very low, and so you're still up. Like, you're still up some, right? In which case you de-risk that position and you wait for it to come back down and buy lower or buy closer to the bottom again, because historically speaking, Q4 of the halving year has been pretty much in the green, right? So even if the hearing doesn't go, like, even if it doesn't get dismissed, which is what everybody's hoping what will happen during the hearing, right? Low probability, but it's still probable that it's going to get dismissed. But if it doesn't go the way that everybody wants it to, and the market decides to dump along with Bitcoin and the rest of crypto, then you basically sell at a small profit and then you buy back in lower. But if it goes exactly the way that we're thinking it's going to happen, well, fucking October and Q4 is the best time to pump, because you pump with the rest of the market. So good either way.
Positive October news would set up a really strong case for a Q4 mega pump. I won't say get to this place where we expect them to go in 2025, but we could see a huge pump on Richard Hart coins if we have positive news coming out in October from the hearing, and then Q4 strong overall.
That's true. To Jay's point, I think the secret lesson from everything though is just buy low always wins. So if you
Buy
bought
low,
low
always
now,
win.
either way it goes, you either took profits before it dipped or you bought low and you're still in massive profits. So it's like, so that one aside, I don't know how likely it is that people that have not already been invested in the chain are now starting to speculate as we get closer to the case. It's possible, but I think that at this point, people probably would have been in their positions by now, because if you're looking at something like that, this has been on the calendar for so long. Besides, we've also had a lot of other milestones along the way, which leads me to believe that people probably would have gotten in their positions further ahead of this. So I do genuinely think that what you're seeing right now is a little bit of a pump, and yeah, I think this is the bottom. Assuming that nothing catastrophic happens with the Richard Hart case, I think the bottom is in, and I think we just saw it, which is kind of crazy to think because we probably saw it. Well, for a long time we thought that we saw it like a year ago, but something like this is kind of wild to think about. But tell you what, let's
you guys wait till we get the next bottom yet to come. Oh boy.
About third bottom. Come on, man. One more. I just need one more all-time bottom, man. Come on. I got more DCA.
All right. So what we got here?
All right. I'm just gonna throw this out there. People that have seen some of the older streams where I did TA on Pulse Chain. This is stuff that I've had in the chart for a hot minute. So I'm just saying, it's kind of interesting that we're right here at this line that I had previously drawn as a support that we flipped into a resistance. So it's like, not saying I'm psychic, but maybe a little bit. So outside of that, the moving averages I have going on right now, the green is the 50 daily moving average. The blue is the 200-day moving average. Right now, we're looking at what could be either a setup to some sort of 5-wave sequence potentially. I don't know if I'm going to call this dip big enough to be a wave 1. Possible. I think unlikely. So possible we can get another dip, but yeah, we broke below the all-time lows back in August of 2023. We bottomed out at about, 31% of SAC price. And then right now we're sitting at about 46% of SAC price. So about a 50%. So Pulse is not the big winner right now. That's some of the other ones. As far as what's going on right now, I do think that this 66% SAC price is going to be another resistance level to break through. And then we might see I could see another resistance area somewhere on either the 57% of SAC price or the 53% of SAC price, if not maybe both. Or we just cut the baby in half and call it a resistance zone, if you will. But that's what I'm looking at right now. Breaking above the 50-day moving average and doing it strongly as well. This is good news on what I think is going on. If we can continue the momentum and break through that 200-day moving average, I think that's going to be some very big bullish news. What do you guys think?
If number goes up, bullish.
Number go up good.
Yep.
Z, can you pull up my chart real quick here?
Which one?
There we go.
Thank you, Mrs. Producer. See how his chart looks so much better than mine.
Well, I was gonna say, Z, yeah, like you think my chart looks so much better than yours, but my chart basically is identical to yours.
Oh, is it really?
Bro,
let's go.
Do you see where this price line is here, bro? Look at the obvious horizontal resistance there, right? That was prior support, cycle high, right? Cycle low. So very obvious horizontal resistance that flipped into resistance when we lost it, right? And now we're contending with this horizontal resistance. If we can break through there and make a run to, surprise, surprise, like Z said, the 200-day moving average, which is right here, that purple line, right? This is a long-term indicator that you would like to flip and turn into support, especially during a bull market, right? Because it's kind of characteristic of a bull market to just stay above the 200-day moving average, right? But, rip altcoins, not just Pulse Chain. So if Pulse Chain and really the broader ecosystem can flip and regain this 200-day moving average, in this case, we're talking about Pulse Chain, then we're going to see a significant amount of momentum to the upside. And it would not be a surprise to flip this very weak level of resistance here, this 80% of SAC price, right? To flip that very strongly, because right now Pulse Chain has basically done a few things correctly. It has made a new low, so that's unfortunate because you invalidated this entire bullish structure here that would have been a fantastic wave one, right? So the entire move that we've been having since the release of this chain was basically a giant fucking corrective structure. But the fact that the whales came in here and supported the price not too much further down below the prior all-time lows is actually a pretty good sign, right? That there's people still left in here propping this chain up and not letting it go too much further down. Also, if you notice here, we finally broke the damn downtrend, right? We had the top here of 2x sack price in March of this year, and then we've had lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, and we finally broke that long-term downtrend, right? Because we technically have a higher high, right? This was our last high. We technically have a higher high now. If we can take this our last 60-day cycle high here of, what's the exact number here? 4 zeros and a 53, right? If we can take this last cycle high, then that's basically a much more solid confirmation that this downtrend is finally over, right? And if you take this 53 area here, then the 200-day moving average, taking the 200-day moving average and flipping that back into support wouldn't be such a big ask either. So obviously, again, really contingent on what Bitcoin does over the next few months. Historically speaking, September does tend to be negative for crypto, but the tides are certainly starting to shift. So we'll see, man. Maybe it'll be different this time, because I believe last year, September was green for crypto as well. So maybe we get a two-peat here for 2024 as well, which would obviously be good for the RH ecosystem as well, and in this case, Pulse Chain.
Yeah, and Jay, you mentioned that we finally broke out of a downtrend in a very, very strong move to the upside. And so, like you said, if we can recover, look, the next couple weeks, the next weekly close, I think after this one is going to be big to see if we close above the current resistance level. A daily close to me isn't enough. I'd really like to see a weekly close above that, and then see if we can move up towards that moving average that you had mentioned before. Huge. And look, we have about a month until the Richard Hart case. So if they're starting to get some positive rumblings, that could help affect the ecosystem a little bit. If we have a huge turnout, judge doesn't even necessarily make a decision, but sounds very strongly in support of Richard Hart. It could be in the next couple of months that we're not down. We might never see these numbers again. And I was lucky to DCA. I DCA'd about half because I didn't know how far down we were going to go. Once we broke below lows, I didn't know what that discovery was going to be. So I said, look, I'm fine if I put 50% of my DCA in now, but I could see a scenario where we go lower because we don't have a support line here anymore. And I didn't get that 50%. I didn't get that 50% in, that other 50% in before we shot back up. But I'm okay with my decision because my thought process was sound, in my opinion.
Exactly.
And again, putting 50% of my DCA in at that freaking low prices was great to begin with. So, and I'm, still banking ink, even though it's interesting how people the one thing that people forget about impermanent loss, by the way, which isn't talked about enough, is impermanent loss only makes a difference is if you're actually planning to sell your tokens. If you're going to hold them in those LPs and they're going to at some point get back to that ratio that they were, then there was no impermanent loss, right?
That's called impermanent.
right. But people don't take that into consideration enough. Impermanent loss doesn't happen until you take yourself out of the LP or you sell your tokens, right? So I'm not worried about impermanent loss currently. I just want to continue to stack my rewards in those LPs until we get into a higher level where maybe then I start to consider removing part of those. But right now, all I'm doing is instead of taking my ink and putting them back into the LPs right now, I'm just banking my ink. That's the only difference that I'm doing currently. And I may put that into an LP at some point. But right now, all of the ink that I'm banking, I'm just keeping there. So that's the only change that I've made. I was reapothecating that back into those farms. But man, I'm stoked about how much ink that I've made in those farms, and that's how you make money in these markets. If you were low in the Richard Hart ecosystem, but you've been making LPs, look, the lower those number goes, the more ink you get, right? The more ink per percentage you get. And so you're making more ink tokens, maybe less dollars, but more ink tokens.
Yeah.
And that's the really important thing for people to realize, is that you are stacking more ink tokens as rewards than you will be at higher prices.
Yeah.
You'll be getting less ink tokens.
Yeah.
And
like,
so
by definition, the best dollar cost average that you could possibly get, where it's like dummy proof, is you put yourself in a stable ink pool, right? Because if the prices is going down, that's basically your best, like you're basically dollar cost averaging all the way down, right? So you don't have to worry about like making a transaction. You don't have to worry about bridging funds. You just let the LPs do the work for you, right? So like understanding that concept, it's basically a way for you to like go about your day and be worry free. But it's like, yeah, I'm gonna hold these assets for the long term anyway. I don't care if they're gonna if they're gonna make like lower lows, because you're convicted in their price appreciation in the future. So it's like it's a dummy proof way for you to dollar cost average into the ecosystem, right? In this case, in ink.
If you're going down, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But got to be careful when you're going up, because you will not make those gains.
you might want to pull out, like if the ecosystem starts moving like extremely fast. I wouldn't be worried about if you're in the Pulse X Pulse Chain pool, I wouldn't be worried too much about that, because Richard or somebody closed the ratio pretty well. And so you don't have to worry about the ratios. I don't think, like we'll see how the ratios react, right? Once the market really starts moving. But as it stands, the ratios are fairly tight together. But again, we'll see how they react. But if you're in a stable pool and the market starts moving really fast to the upside, it's gonna dollar cost average you out. So like if it moves fast and you're like, shit, we're moving way too fast for my comfort, then it's probably time for you to consider to pull the stable pools out. Because if you keep your incentive or your Pulse X or your Pulse Chain in those stable pool farms, then you risk dollar cost averaging yourself out too early. So that like Brendan said, if like on the upside, you got to be careful.
Alternatively though, Jay, that could be for the people who don't, like, if you're okay with impermanent loss as your mechanism of DCAing out, then like there might be people that'll miss the top like real bad. The alternative, you're earning ink, you're earning fees. Like if you're in a farm, anyways. If you're in a farm, if you're in like a regular LP or something like that, totally different scenario. But if you're in a farm and you're okay with LPing out, or even like if you really want to like stay in there, like past the bull market and earn the tokens all the way back down on the bear again, and just fucking ride this fucking that roller coaster up and down. That's an option too. It's not necessarily like, I don't know if I would do it. I don't know if I would recommend it. It's just another way to look at things. It's another tool in your guys' toolbox. So something to consider. Impermanent loss is real though. Be very careful.
I think people are much more comfortable dollar cost averaging down in a stable pool than seeing the price run away from them, and they basically get like their ink basically gets liquidated, and the only thing they have left is stables, and then the price goes up another like 20, 50, 100x, right? I think that one hurts a little bit more. But it's, again, if your only concern is getting the dummy proof dollar cost average out and in, then you can stay in the pools.
Yep. It's also like there's a difference between V3 and V2. Now there is no V3 on PulseX, which is where the major farms are. But if you go over onto 9-inch, they have a V3 over there. Same thing with 9mm. They have a V3 over there. If you want to set a range and use that as your DCA out and earn fees in the meantime, then you can also set on 9mm. I know you can set the fees up to 2%. Yep. So like you could be earning some hella good fees while the price action is happening.
That's what I'll be doing. Like, I'm not gonna fucking try and time the top. Like, I'm gonna set a range, and like, I'm gonna leave a moon bag. So if the top goes far beyond my range, I still have something left. So
yes, yeah. Brendan, you had something there. Something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I was gonna say, any place that you put your coins outside of PulseX in farms is riskier. That's the only thing I'm gonna say, because we saw 9mm rug recently.
can I offer some clarification on the 9 mil rug?
Sure.
There was a stake. The staking contract specifically is the thing that rugged on 9 millimeter. The decentralized exchange, as far as I'm aware, is still functional. It's a fork of Pancake Swap. It's Pancake Swap is my understanding. And the thing that they did, the thing that the devs did, was they built their own little, or somebody else built the staking contract, then built the actual decentralized exchange. Now the token of the decentralized exchange, the 9 millimeter, that's the one that was destroyed price action wise in this whole debacle and things. So the decentralized exchange is still functional. Now whether people believe in it and invest in it is up to them, but just so that the folks at home are aware, 9 millimeter the exchange still works. 9 millimeter the token, there was an exploit that was taken advantage of and the token was sold like crazy. So the
came back pretty good though.
Yeah, it did pretty decent. I happened to be live and I caught the bottom like 20 minutes after it tanked, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna do a little shitcoin play here. I don't know what's gonna happen, but fuck it, I'll buy this bottom, and it turned out pretty well. But please continue. I shouldn't. You had okay. Yeah.
I will say, if you unfortunately want to see an actual rug on Pulse Chain, LUSD, the stable coin. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, that was that one that they took use, because when you copy over these stable coins, the oracles aren't set to Pulse Chain; they're set to Ethereum, and so everything's thrown off. So they were able to absolutely mint that to shit.
The liquid fork, I believe.
Yeah.
There's just a bazillion of them created out of nowhere, and then like, blam, all gone. Well, not all gone. Way too many of them. So there's, I think, I want to say there's like 16 zeros after the period for the price.
We're up to 17 now, Foil.
Ooh, nice. Love to see it. That's great.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, everyone who is doing stuff with the LUSD. It is what it is.
Yeah, for reference, it used to be at about what?
It was like maybe 4 zeros. Or 5 zeros, something like that.
It was like 6 zeros.
Yeah, I remember like you could buy $1 billion of it for like $100 or something. So something like that. I could be wrong. I might be logarithmically off a little bit, but the point is like it was within the realm of understandability. Now it's like, oh, 16 zeros. What does that mean? Like fucking infinite number, basically. Infinite number down. So you had something you wanted to say though, Jay? And then and then we'll
I was just going to say, this reminds me of a story that the Hexacristo DCC told us on one of my very first courses with Charlie and Miguel. And he said, when Pulse Chain comes out, there's going to be a significant amount of projects whose primary goal is to extract your Pulse Chain, your Pulse X, and your incentive and your Hex out of your wallets into shit coins. And so be cautious of what you do. And so I don't have anything against more projects on Pulse Chain because it is an L1, so you want people to build on it. Otherwise, what's the hell's the point? But that's precisely the reason why I don't engage outside of the core coin. So again, that's not anything against our friends who are founders, because there's a lot of them. They're great. And they're good, honest people trying to expand the services that are provided on Pulse Chain. But there's a reason why I don't engage outside of the core tokens.
I will say that a lot of them are good in building. There are also a lot of scammers. And you have to take that into consideration as well. Anything that you do outside the core coins are riskier. Absolutely. Risk could create more X's, but I feel like the Richard ecosystem is already risky to begin with.
It is.
So you're only talking getting a riskier on top of risk. So that's the only thing to keep in consideration. I think it's a good point, Jay.
Excellent. All right, gentlemen, any final thoughts on anything that we've been talking about? It's time to move to close. Speak now.
Here we go, pump it up.
All right, well, I'll go ahead and...
Here we go, pump it up. Got to pump it up. Here we go, pump it up. Got to bump it up. Here we go, pump it up. They got to pump it up.
I'm waiting for Ivan's new song, bro. Because whenever the green candles start like showing up one after the other, Ivan always has like a good song queued up.
I'm excited, man. Like, I'm excited for the green candles. I don't know. I've been bullish this whole time, even through the downturns. I'm still bullish. Like, let's go. You guys deserve some green candles.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We all deserve some green candles. Let's go ahead and start closing out. I will go ahead and begin. My name is Will Stevenson. You guys can find all of my socials at will.pls.fyi. As far as things coming up in the near future, we have book club, we have Whiskey Wednesday this Wednesday, and some other things. Zenith, do you want to do book club this weekend, or do you want me to take it?
It's probably best if you take it. I don't have anything picked out right now.
Excellent. I got it. I'm going to make the decision live on the air right now. So let me pull up my fancy schmancy notes for book suggestions. We're going to do Poor Richard's Retirement by Aaron Clary. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be the book that we're covering.
We do that one already?
Nope, we have not.
What was the Aaron Clary book that we did?
It's super quick. We haven't done any Aaron Clary books.
We did one. I'm pretty sure it's Poor Richard's Retirement, where he talks about how the only thing you can count on in life is having entertaining people. And if they're not entertaining, what are you doing?
I am looking through. Oh, we did. Wow. Yeah, we did. Number 12, book club, Poor Richard's Retirement. Well, I stand corrected. We are not going to do Poor Richard's Retirement. We're going to do Bachelor Pad Economics. That's what we're doing.
Ooh.
That was
another Aaron Clary. So,
yep.
You know.
I'm down for some Cappy.
Wow, that's outstanding. I can't believe we did that already, and I already forgot about it. Fuck yeah. All right, so cool. Poor Richard's Retirement. That was episode number 12. Holy smokes. Good memory, Z. I totally forgot all about that. All right, so we're going to be doing that, and and then we have a Sunday show, and that's what's going on with the Degen Roundtable. If you guys want to find me or find other Mexicans, then you should go to bit.ly/hex_meetup.
This man said Mexicans, bro.
What's that? Bunch of Hexicans, Mexicans. If you want to meet a bunch of Mexicans, then go to Mexico. And then go to Mexico at bit.ly/hex_meetup. Oh, you guys can meet a whole bunch of Hexicans and Mexicans in there. I'm sure that there's I don't know if I have a Mexico room in there yet. I should make I should totally make a Mexico room. Como te llamas, my amigos. But you guys can find everything going on down in Mexico and Hexico over at bit.ly/hex_meetup. That's the thing that I made over there. I'm going to go ahead and also shout out our Degen Roundtable Telegram. If you guys are not already a part of the Degen Roundtable Telegram, then you need to join it. How do you join it, you ask? What an excellent question. I'm glad you asked. You can scan that QR code that's down there below, right? Oh, there we go. Pointing. You can type into your URL, t.me/DRT join now. All one word. Again, for the folks that are listening on audio, that is t.me/DRT join now. That gets you into the Degen Roundtable Telegram group, where we talk about memes, we talk about guns, we talk about girls, we talk about fitness, we talk about video games, we talk about anime, we talk about cryptocurrency, most importantly, and we all just hang out and have a good time. So hop on in there. You're going to have a great time. You're going to love it. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. I already said where you can find all of my socials at. Again, that is will.pls.fyi. I did not drop a link in the comments or in the live chat, so I'll go ahead and do that right now. will.pls.fyi. As far as things that I'm doing in the near future, I just made it back to Texas. So if you guys are in Texas, hit me up. It'll be a good time. We'll hang out. And that's what I've got going on. Mr. Co-host Zenith, where can the folks find you, and what do you have going on in the near future, my friend?
Folks, thanks for joining. I'm Zenith. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at ZenithDI. If you like the conversation here tonight, you want to keep it going, jump into the Telegram. Go ahead and at any of us on here. Hit us up with any questions you have. It's where we post all of our thoughts, TA, and I'm going to hop in the anime tab and post my review of Yamada and the Seven Witches that I watched on the plane during my travels. It was all right. I'll give it a 7. I hate giving 7s as a cop-out number, but that's honestly how I felt about it.
7's not bad.
Yeah.
7's like, hey, you guys should probably check it out at least. At least that's how I look at a 7.
It could go either way depending on who you are. 7 for 7 witches. Perfect. There you go. That's why it's a 7. Voila. Anyways, other than that, folks, we have Whiskey Wednesday coming up. So if you want to hang out, chat with us, bring up any topics, we'll try to put something fun on for you. That's going on Wednesday. We have Bachelor Pat Economics on Friday for book club, and then we're going to be back for flagship show on Sunday. It's either this week or this upcoming week or the week after that. We're going to be doing our quarter four thesis. So stay tuned for that. We're going to be talking all about macroeconomics. We're going to be talking about markets. We're going to be talking about what you expect, whether or not we're going to get a Santa rally this year. That's what you can expect in that one. And if you want more good Degens talking about good stuff, go over to Mr. Angry Twinkie's YouTube channel. He is streaming live right now with Boogie and Almighty, the guy that is the creator of the Mike and Kitty tokens. I don't know too much about the projects. I hear the price appreciation has been going pretty well over the last few weeks, but that's most things on Pulse Chain. So other than that, if you're interested in that, head over there, tell them the Degen sent you. They will be stoked to have you. All right, Brendan.
Well, I don't have a lot to add. Good show. I hope that we gave you some positive hopium at the end here. Looking up, I think things are looking up. That's the takeaway that we want you to have. Both from a macroeconomic standpoint and a rich hard ecosystem standpoint, just a generic market standpoint. I think things are looking good. You can find me on X. I may or may not be here Whiskey Wednesday. Not sure. If I am, I'm gonna have a drink with all you. If not, I'm gonna have a drink for all of you. Yeah, we got a lot to talk about over the coming weeks. Stick around in the Degen Roundtable Telegram because you're going to want to be here when things pop off. When do you pull your LPs? I don't know. How do you know if you're not in our Telegram? Might have to get into one of our calls that Jay and Dace have every Tuesday. Those are really great calls, and they're private calls specifically for our Telegram group, and it's free. So we put a lot of alpha in there, and that's just where I want people to go. Other than that, find me on X, and God is good. Jay, what's going on?
Hey, it's absolutely fantastic to be back after the shit show that was the last few weeks. So, as always, you can find me on X at __ P90 Hex, on Instagram at agent _ J Schroth. We, as always, we know that time is your most valuable asset. So we do appreciate that you spend some of that time here with us on our Sunday episode and whenever you decide to hop on. So like the damn video, comment, subscribe, scan the QR code. Like Brendan said, we have a Telegram Tuesday call with Dace Northal where you almost always get the alpha first. So if you'd like to be part of that, if you'd like to be part of a growing, thriving community, no nonsense, just alpha, jump into the Telegram. And yeah, that's it, man. Looking forward to getting back in a regular streaming schedule here. Will, take us out, my friend.
All righty. First off, 2 shout outs. One, happy birthday to my good friend, Crypto Kool-Aid, and also my good friend, Olivia, whose birthday it is today. I'm going to start doing birthday shout outs. So whenever I know someone's birthday, I'm just going to say happy birthday to them. What if they watch this show or not? It's good remembering for me. Next, also, we've got a Funkmaster Hex who has joined us. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Good evening to you too, Mr. Funkmaster Hex, the one of the finest of D-gentlemans. I want to thank all the folks at home for spending your valuable time with us here on the Degen Roundtable. As Agent J often says, we know that time is your most precious asset, and we appreciate you investing it right here with us. Let's be honest, we haven't even started yet. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been watching the Degen Roundtable. My name is Will Stevenson. Mrs. Producer, go ahead and get that trigger figure ready, but I'm going to toss it off to Zenith, who's going to take it away for us. Go ahead, bud. It's all yours.
As I walk through the valley where I harvest my grain, I take a look at my wife and realize she's very plain. But that's just perfect for an Amish like me. I shun fancy things like electricity. And until then, Degen responsibly, gang.